Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're kind of wading into the fitness supplement world.
Yeah, it's pretty wild out there.
Right? You see all these flashy promises, build muscle, melt fat, just add this powder, take this pill. But honestly, a lot of it, probably not necessary, can really hit your wallet too.
Absolutely. But, there are a few key things backed by actual science that might genuinely give you an edge, especially for bouncing back after workouts and maybe building a bit more muscle.
Yeah, and that's what we're focusing on, right? It's easy to get overwhelmed, maybe a bit skeptical with all this stuff out there.
Definitely. Healthy skepticism is good here. So our goal with this deep dive basically is to cut through that noise. We've looked at info from Gravity Transformation, the fat loss experts.
Okay.
And we're pulling out the stuff that the evidence actually points to for post-workout. What might really help you see faster progress.
Okay, let's get into it then. First up, something maybe not top of mind for post-workout, magnesium citrate.
Yeah, magnesium. It's interesting because, a lot of people might be low.
How many are we talking?
Well, the research suggests somewhere between 15 and maybe even up to 50% of Americans just aren't getting enough daily magnesium.
Wow, okay.
And if you're active, working out consistently, it can be an even bigger issue for you.
Why is that?
More demand. Exactly. So when you exercise hard, you actually lose magnesium through sweat, through urine.
Oh, okay.
Plus, your muscles, when they're repairing themselves, they need more magnesium too. So yeah, being active just naturally means your body needs more compared to someone less active.
Makes sense.
There was a study, I think, in the Journal of Magnesium Research that pointed out intense exercise can bump up your needs by like 10 to 20% just from those losses.
So being low could really slow down your recovery then?
It definitely could put the brakes on, yeah.
Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. The timing. Taking it after the workout. Why specifically then? What's the benefit right after you've, pushed yourself?
Right. Well, thinking about recovery, taking magnesium citrate after your workout, it's not just about replacing what you lost.
Yeah.
Though that's part of it. It also seems to actively help your muscles recover. And think about your nervous system. After a hard workout, you're kind of in that fight or flight mode, right? And sympathetic nervous system is firing.
Yeah, definitely feel that sometimes.
But for recovery, you want to shift. You want to get into rest and digest, the parasympathetic system. Magnesium citrate post-workout seems to help calm down that sympathetic drive.
Helps you switch gears.
Yes, exactly. Helps you switch gears.
Yeah.
That stress response, the cortisol hanging around, it doesn't really help muscles rebuild. It can actually hinder it. So magnesium helps your body make that shift towards recovery.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You need to wind down properly.
Right.
Now, the source specifically mentions magnesium citrate. Are there, other types? Ones to avoid, maybe?
That's a really good point. You see magnesium oxide a lot. It's common, cheap. But it's generally not the best choice. Your body just doesn't absorb it very well. Low bioavailability, they call it.
So you're not really getting the benefit.
Pretty much. And sometimes it can cause stomach issues, irritation. Magnesium citrate, on the other hand, much better absorbed, usually easier on the stomach.
Okay, so citrate's the way to go. How much are we talking?
The typical recommendation seems to be around 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate after your workout.
Got it. And if you can't find citrate?
Other okay options are things like magnesium chloride, lactate, gluconate, or even aspartate. They're generally better than oxide.
Okay, magnesium sorted. Let's move on. Next up, l-carnitine. Now, I've heard of this one. Usually linked to fat burning.
Yeah, that's the common association.
Yeah.
But what's interesting here in this context is the research looking at recovery.
Okay.
So there's growing evidence it can actually help reduce muscle damage, soreness after exercise, and help the muscles repair themselves better.
Really? How does it do that?
Well, multiple studies have found these positive effects. Like one indicated it can help heal muscle injuries, reduce markers of cell damage, things like free radicals. And that leads to less soreness later.
Okay.
And part of the mechanism seems to be helping improve blood flow and oxygen getting to the muscle tissue.
Interesting. So less damage, better delivery of the good stuff?
Something like that, yeah. And based on the evidence, the dose seems to be around 2,000 milligrams, so 2 grams, of l-carnitine L-tartrate taken post-workout.
2 grams l-carnitine L-tartrate. Got it. So it's not just the fat-burning idea, it's active recovery help.
Exactly.
Okay. Next, this one's probably more familiar. creatine. Everyone knows it for strength, muscle size.
The classic, yeah.
But the source is also talking about it for recovery.
Right, and that's maybe the less talked about benefit, but it's really important to me. Creatine's power for strength and mass, super well established. But think about it. When do your muscles actually grow and get stronger?
During recovery, right?
Exactly. So by helping reduce that exercise-induced muscle damage and soreness, creatine basically helps you recover better, which indirectly supports that growth process.
Ah, okay. And timing matters here, too.
Seems like it might. There's research, including a meta-analysis, which looked at a bunch of studies, suggesting that taking creatine after your workout could be slightly better than taking it before, specifically for these recovery aspects.
Interesting. So even with creatine, timing could give you a little extra edge? What about dose and type? Still the same old advice?
Pretty much. The standard dose is 5 grams a day. And yeah, taking it post-workout fits nicely.
What about that loading phase people talk about?
Right, the loading phase. You can do 20 grams a day for the first week to saturate your muscles faster. But just taking 5 grams daily gets you to the exact same place in about 3 to 4 weeks. And you often avoid potential stomach discomfort some people get with loading.
Okay, so patience works too. And the type. So many options now.
Stick with the basics. Creatine monohydrate. It's the most researched, most proven, most effective form. You really don't need to spend extra on the fancy variations. Monohydrate works.
Good to know. Keep it simple. Okay, creatine covered. Let's switch gears a bit. Ashwagandha.
Ah, yes, the adaptogen.
Right. Usually hear about it for stress. How does that connect to post-workout recovery?
Well, it connects back to that nervous system stuff we touched on with magnesium.
Okay.
After a really tough workout, your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, is cranked up. Heart rate's up. You've got adrenaline, cortisol.
Yep.
Which is great during the workout, but you don't want it sticking around too long afterwards when you're trying to recover. You want to shift back to the parasympathetic rest and digest.
All right, calm things down.
Exactly. And ashwagandha, which is an herb from Ayurvedic tradition, seems to help encourage that shift. It helps your body kind of calm down and move towards that recovery state after the stress of exercise.
So it's actively helping that transition. And the source mentioned cortisol specifically. That seems key for recovery.
Absolutely. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and chronically high levels aren't great for muscle building or recovery. Studies have shown ashwagandha can help lower it.
Like how much?
One study used 300 milligrams of high-concentration extract for 60 days. They saw cortisol drop by almost 28%.
Wow.
And those people also reported feeling less anxious, less stressed mentally. Another study, using 5 grams of the root powder, found cortisol down 14% in regular guys, and even more, like 32%, in men dealing with stress-related infertility.
That's significant. And does it help muscle damage, too?
There's research suggesting it does, yeah. Improved exercise-induced muscle damage and recovery, especially in people new to training. They measured things like creatine kinase, a marker for muscle damage, and saw improvements.
Okay, so it's working on a couple of levels there. What's the suggested dose for this recovery benefit?
Around 600 milligrams of ashwagandha root extract, taken post-workout, seems to be the common recommendation for these effects.
600 milligram post-workout. Okay. This is definitely giving me a new perspective on recovery supplements. It's not just direct muscle fuel.
Right, it's about the whole system.
Okay, next. Casein protein. Now, protein, obviously crucial. Muscle repair, growth. We know that.
Fundamental, yeah.
Yeah.
And helps with feeling full, too, which can tie into fat loss goals indirectly.
But the source brings up this comparison. Casein versus whey. Whey is usually the go-to post-workout shake, right?
It usually is.
Yeah.
And look, that whole idea of a super strict anabolic window right after training, it's maybe not as rigid as we once thought.
Okay.
But the evidence does still support getting protein in relatively soon after you train, within maybe 30 to 60 minutes.
So beneficial then.
Yeah, a 2018 study found post-workout protein helped with muscle growth and strength, even in people already getting enough protein overall. It's about keeping that balanced tip towards muscle-building protein synthesis rather than breakdown. Post-workout protein helps with that.
Okay, so protein soon after is good. But why casein specifically sometimes over whey?
Right, this is where it gets a bit nuanced. Whey protein digests really fast, which can be great, especially if maybe you train fasted on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
Get those amino acids in quickly.
Makes sense.
But if you had, say, a meal with protein a few hours before your workout, casein might actually be a better choice after the workout.
Why is that?
Because casein digests much, much more slowly than whey. It provides a sort of slower, steadier release of amino acids. And this seems to be particularly good at slowing down muscle breakdown.
Ah, so it's hitting the other side of the equation.
Exactly. It helps prevent breakdown over a longer period. Some studies even suggest casein might lead to better long-term gains in strength and muscle in these situations compared to whey.
Interesting, but whey's still okay.
Oh, absolutely. Whey is a perfectly fine option,
Yeah.
especially when you think about taste, texture. Casein can be a bit thick or clumpy sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And cost. Whey is often cheaper because it's a byproduct of making cheese.
Yeah.
So lots of it around. If you do go with whey isolate is generally preferred over concentrate. It's more filtered, less fat, less lactose.
Isolate over concentrate. Good tip. Okay, that casein versus whey thing is clearer now. It depends.
It often does, yeah.
All right, moving on. Tart cherry powder. The source called this one questionable. What's the deal?
Yeah, questionable might be a bit strong, but there's definitely a discussion around it. It's interesting because it seems to have clear recovery benefits, but maybe a potential question mark around muscle growth.
Okay, let's start with the good stuff, the recovery part.
So, tart cherries are loaded with these compounds called anthocyanins. They're a type of flavonoid, really powerful antioxidants. And research shows these compounds can help reduce oxidative stress and inflammation in the body, which, after a workout, can definitely help with recovery. Studies have linked tart cherry extract to reduced muscle soreness, helping maintain strength better while you recover, even reducing muscle protein breakdown.
That all sounds really positive for recovery. So what's the uncertainty about muscle growth then?
Well, there aren't really direct studies showing tart cherry powder itself increases muscle growth. That link isn't established.
Okay.
And the concern comes from that anti-inflammatory effect. When you exercise hard, you cause some natural inflammation in your muscles.
Right, that's soreness.
Yeah. And while it sounds bad, that inflammation is actually part of the signal your body uses to say, hey, repair this tissue and make it stronger.
Ah, it's a trigger.
It's part of the trigger, yeah. So the worry is, if you take really high doses of antioxidants, like from tart cherry, right immediately after your workout, could you potentially blunt that signal? Could you interfere with the muscle-building process?
Okay, I see the potential conflict.
But, and this is important, the timing seems to be key here. It looks like this potential issue, this blunting effect, is more likely if you take the antioxidants during your workout, or like immediately before or after.
So what's the recommendation then?
The suggestion is maybe wait a couple of hours after you finish training before taking something like tart cherry powder. That way, you might get the recovery benefits kicking in later without potentially interfering with those initial muscle-building signals right after the workout.
Get the best of both worlds, potentially. Timing is everything.
Seems like it, for this one anyway.
Okay, interesting. Last one on our list, fish oil, omega-3s. We hear about these all the time for general health, brain health, heart health.
Right, they're really important overall, and many people just don't get enough through diet alone.
So how do they fit into the post-workout picture?
Well, for exercise specifically, there's research suggesting that getting enough omega-3s can actually help improve performance, muscle growth, and gaining lean body mass.
How? What's the mechanism there?
It's thought that omega-3s can sort of enhance the anabolic signaling pathways in your muscles after you eat protein, basically helping your body respond better to protein for repair and growth.
Okay, boosting the muscle-building response.
Yeah. And beyond that, omega-3s have other relevant benefits, like reducing chronic inflammation, which can hinder recovery. They might help lower cortisol, maybe even support healthy testosterone levels.
Wow, lots of potential benefits.
Plus, improve nutrient partitioning, how your body uses nutrients, and maybe even boosting fat oxidation or fat burning, potentially helping decrease fat mass over time.
Sounds like a good all-rounder then. What's the best way to get enough? Food first?
Definitely aim for food first if you can. A good target is eating at least, say, 500 grams of fatty fish per week. Think salmon, mackerel, sardines.
Okay. And if that's tough, supplementation.
Yeah, if getting that much fish consistently is hard, then supplementing is a good idea. The usual recommendation is taking 1 to 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day.
EPA and DHA, those are the key omega-3s.
Those are the main active ones in fish oil, yeah. And taking it with your post-workout meal is a great time, especially if that meal has some fat in it, because that helps your body absorb the omega-3s better, increases bioavailability.
Take it with food, preferably with some fat. Got it. What about krill oil? Hear about that too.
Krill oil is another option. It also provides EPA and DHA. Some research suggests it might be even more absorbable than fish oil, possibly because the omega-3s are structured a bit differently. And krill oil naturally contains an antioxidant called astaxanthin.
What?
But it tends to be quite a bit more expensive than fish oil. So
Yeah.
Fish oil is usually the more practical choice for most people.
Fish oil, 1 to 2 grams, combined EPH with a post-workout meal.
Okay, so wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. Magnesium, l-carnitine, creatine, ashwagandha, casein, tart cherry, fish oil.
Quite the list.
If you had to really boil it down based on everything we've discussed from the source material, what are the absolute must-haves or the most important ones for post-workout?
Yeah, looking at the strength of the evidence and the core goals of recovery and growth, creatine and protein really stand out.
Those are the big two. Those are the foundational ones mentioned here, with the most robust backing for directly impacting muscle repair and growth after exercise. The others we talked about, magnesium, carnitine, ashwagandha, tart cherry, fish oil. They definitely offer interesting potential additional benefits. Things you might consider layering on depending on your specific situation, your goals, maybe where you feel you need extra support.
But start with protein and creatine as the base.
That seems to be the key takeaway, yeah. Get those right first.
All right, that's a super valuable summary.
Right.
So we've taken this deep dive into these specific supplements. Magnesium citrate, L-carnitine, creatine, ashwagandha, casein protein, tart cherry powder, and fish oil. We've looked at how they might help you recover better, maybe build more muscle, based on the science and insights from the material we explored today.
Exactly. The goal was really to give you a clearer picture based on that evidence of how these might fit into optimizing things after you train, cutting through some of that confusion.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Now that you've heard about these more targeted, evidence-based options, how might you maybe tweak or refine your own post-workout routine? Could any of these help you get better results, recover more effectively?
Yeah, just take a second to think about your current approach. See if any of these options really resonate with your specific needs, what you're trying to achieve with your fitness journey.
Definitely some food for thought. Thanks for going deep with us today.